Welcome to Between the Rig, a podcast hosted by Pushbox CrossFit. We're all about fitness and bringing you direct opinions wrapped in humor and a touch of, did they really just say that? We aim to help you understand more about coaching, gym ownership, and what it takes to get the most out of your fitness, mindset, and lifestyle, both inside and outside the gym. Let's get into it. All right, what's up, team? Welcome back to another episode of Between the Rig, a podcast hosted by Pushbox CrossFit. And shout out to our sponsors that we don't have yet. So if you're listening and want to help out, that would be great. All right, we got we got the fun crew in the house.
Fun crew.
All right, we got Josh Grenadine Schieffer and Caroline Lavender Moline. And what's fun about this is one of those names are actually true. And which one is it? And that giggle over there.
I'm no grenadine.
Grenadine?
That's the first thing that came to mind.
I was like, what's the story behind grenadine?
I was like, what?
I want to know the story behind lavender.
Lavender? My mom's maiden name. Yeah.
Sweet.
So family name.
That's a cool name.
Lavender.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like actually the smell of lavender? Because I feel like that's a real kind of like cilantro. Like you
Is
either
it?
like it or don't.
Who doesn't like
it.
lavender?
There's probably people out there.
I haven't met one.
I like lavender.
I like lavender. Do you like lavender?
I don't
very
mind
calming.
Yeah, see, everyone likes lavender. Small test
Yeah.
group.
All right, yeah.
It's
So us
official.
three should probably blanket across 8 billion people. How are you guys?
Good. You know, really good. Had a baby
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Number 2.
Number 2, she's awesome. You know, where everyone kind of fears that like the second one's gonna be worse as far as like waking up crying, but she's honestly way easier. Way easier. And maybe it's just from dealing with a 3-year-old and just the constant like pushing your boundaries to the point where you're just like, if you weren't a small child, like to having a baby that just lays there and just like, I'm hungry, and you're like, oh, that's it.
So she talks already.
I mean, essentially,
Or is that
just
just
the
your
cries. Yeah, that's my interpretation.
You
of her
probably get
cries.
this a lot. Who do you love more already?
Oh, the daughter. Sorry, I love you, Micah. It's still, you can move your way back up the ranks.
I didn't expect you to answer that so quickly, but hey, shout out Micah. You'll be okay.
Oh my gosh.
No, I love him.
Caroline, this is a longtime listener, first time talker.
I know. I have a voice. Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thanks.
And also newest, dopest member to the coaching team.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If we had a button, I'd be like, wah, wah, wah.
Wah.
Welcome.
Let's go.
How's it going
Thanks.
so far with all that?
So it's so much fun. I love I was 6 a.m.er before, and now I know everyone that goes to like every single hour, and it's been so much fun getting to know everyone, and just learning what people like to do and favorite movements and just helping people get better. Not just in the lifts, but in some of the, machines and stuff like that too. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've got a lot of positive feedback about you and a lot of nice things on Sunday as well. So we think you're crushing it. And I'm super pumped to have you both here. So my quick question of the day, because I feel we have a lot to talk about, which is probably, I could see this being like a part 2 or part 3 episode just based on how much we want to cover. But we were discussing this at the anniversary party this past Saturday. If you could combine the 5, 6, 7 a.m., the 4:30, 5:30, 6:30 p.m., and then a bunch of us kind of agreed that the noon class would get the open gymmers. If we had to kind of make a mini push CrossFit Olympic Games or whatever, like multiple workouts, what team of those 3 would win? So we'd, have a skills thing, we'd have a mixed modal, we'd have probably a strength, we do all the usual multiple components just so it's not just the same type of test. And then how do you identify a morning, midday, or nighttime?
So after I think you had been talking to some morning people about this at the party, and after that conversation took place, a group of them came up to me and they were like, we claim you.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably Brad, CJ, and the Goudas.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. The Goudas were like, Caroline, you're the morning crew. So
How would you identify?
I think I'd have to identify with the morning people.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a little biased. I only coach morning these days. Nothing against the PMers, but I'll have to say morning. Mainly a lot because the 5 a.m.ers. I mean, it takes a different mentality to get up in the morning at
So
4:30.
you're predicting the morning group would win. What team would you be on?
I have to be the afternoon.
Okay.
What was it? The
The noon / open
Yeah.
gym.
We have some solid athletes in the noon and an open gym, but just pure numbers.
So it's funny
No.
because all the morning people were like, God, I don't know. The nighttime, every time I check the leaderboard, they're like crushing our score. Then nighttime people are like, God, these morning people are insane. Like everyone seemed to kind of say someone else. And then they're like, wait, who's part of open gym? Who's part of the noon? Because I'd probably have to go noon open gym. And if you're going there as well, like I think we have a good balance of strength
I'm going noon open gym.
and
Well,
Metcon
yeah.
across all 3 teams. So I think that's something we should start to kind of try to set up in the background. That'd be a fun.
Does Kyle get to go in one of the groups? Because that might determine.
No, Kyle's on his own.
Okay.
It goes morning,
Kyle versus.
midday, nighttime, and Kyle.
Kyle versus push.
Yeah. He's a cheat code.
Yeah.
All right, team. So it's funny, like I'm not even sure the best way to phrase kind of what we want to talk about, but I think the general topic is CrossFit. No surprise there. But kind of I want all of us to try to see both sides of all these points and almost kind of playfully play devil's advocate with each other, either if it's just our own opinions or maybe what we assume different types of people might think about the topics we kind of talk about. And I've always kind of seen CrossFit, if you kind of have the metaphor visual of like a table or a chair or something, the 4 legs would be the brand, the methodology, the sport, and the community, and how they all intertwine really well together, and how sometimes they've maybe gotten each other's way, or just from like the outsiders looking in, just the marketing and branding of it. On the inside us, how do we quickly describe it like an elevator pitch? Like what are some of the things that it's gotten in its own way, and what is some of the beauty that makes it what it is over the course of all these years it's existed? So it sounds kind of broad. We got a lot of great kind of statements and questions from other members, and we'll try to get through them, or hopefully just generally talk about them in the midst of all of our other kind of topics. And if we feel like we kind of just missed out, then we'll probably just do like another version of this. And so my first kind of question to us seems like an obvious one, but I still sometimes like imagine you walked in the elevator, someone was like, whoa, you work out? And you're like, yeah. Like, what do you do? We're like, CrossFit. And they're like, what's that? And like, you're on the lobby floor, but you're both going to level 2. Like, it's not going to be a long ride. What do you like describe CrossFit as? And of those 4 kind of legs or pillars that I just kind of brought up, do you find yourself, as you're describing it, kind of using one of them to kind of pitch it or sell it more than the other? Because it's, constantly varied functional movement, executed at high intensity. But if you say that, you sound like a fucking lunatic. And that still doesn't give a lot of clarity to people who really maybe have no exposure to fitness. We say that to each other. We're like, oh, constantly, like, I know, yeah, functional movement. Okay. But they may be like, you just said more words and I'm more confused. So like, what is CrossFit?
You want to go first or me?
Grenadine, you're up.
Yeah, if you have the notes, if you have something to say,
I know.
I was just
brought
just gonna
all my
wing
notes.
Yeah.
I brought the L1 guide
Yeah.
in case
Yeah.
we need to reference anything.
Visual watchers,
Yeah.
Caroline is prepared.
I
And
like
Josh
to-
has our notes.
it. Yeah,
So
I feel naked.
We got
like
2 different kinds of
like-
people here.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right, Lavender.
My elevator pitch for CrossFit, I would say it's group classes with a strength component and aerobic component, and gymnastics component. That's what I would say in the level change.
And right now it's like beep, one more level, and they're like, okay, right? Like already I'm gonna just throw wrenches in here and try to be like, because you're right, it's gymnastics and it's aerobic and it's strength, and those are components, and it is group classes. But then Kyle, like you mentioned, does a lot of individual. So does he do CrossFit? Like, is the group element the big glue that holds it together? Because I've heard some, high level coaches, L4s and all that, they're like, they almost believe like the community is the main driver, and you're not doing CrossFit if you're doing it on your own. You're doing like high intensity functional movement.
Yeah.
And I can also see that argument. So do you think that would be a quick, because you're not wrong.
Yeah. I think that would depend on if I'm trying to get this person to do it with me, or if I'm trying to convey what it is, because in its basic form, it's just a way for people to work out. Like, I got into it because I got bored of what I was doing.
Right.
And so, in its most basic form, you know, without getting into the sport of it, which is a whole, you know, another pillar, at its base, it's what people can do to improve their quality of life.
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. I mean, as far as the question with Kyle, I mean, I'm assuming Kyle probably did group classes before, right? I think every athlete, I don't think anyone just wakes up and is like, you know what, I'm going to go be a games athlete and like without ever doing CrossFit. So you start in the gym, you start in the group class, and then there's different levels to it. Once you're like, oh, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this, you know. But if I were to pitch it to somebody in an elevator, I don't know, it'd be really simple. Like, we do a bunch of different things. I lift, we do some gymnastics, we do some running around sometimes, a lot of burpees. It's a fun time, a lot of group of people. Come try it sometime. But
do you think the
And we're a
broad
cult.
and what?
And we're a cult.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. You have to get branded.
I got some stuff to say for that. We'll wait till the segue for that, though.
Yeah. I find myself sometimes trying to dance around some of like the level 1 definitions because it sounds so like copy and paste and you want to have that personal connection. But then you find yourself kind of being too broad. And it's like, did you even answer the question in the first place? So like, there's some movement with some people.
Yeah.
You're like, cool.
That's it. I mean,
And they're like, okay, Orange Theory is movement with some people. What sets it apart?
well, they're trying to really specifically stay in one type of zone, like the orange, or I don't know all their zones, but their heart rate at a certain domain. We are trying to do fitness at a broad range. Like, we're trying just basic lifts to high level not high level, well, mid gymnastics. High level for us.
Right. Yeah. For us, it's a muscle up. For Olympic gymnasts, like that's just how they get up to the rings to start.
We do this at different tiers, different levels, however you want to put it, but we're not specifically focusing on one thing.
So why do you think Orange Theory and F45s seem potentially to some more open arm, welcoming, safer, whatever you want to say?
I mean, CrossFit has gotten a lot of like bad publicity in the past, and people love to hate on things. So I think that puts us at a disadvantage from the get-go. And like Orange Theory versus, you know, you see the commercials on TV for Orange Theory and everyone's having fun and stuff. Whereas CrossFit, I mean, they'll have...
We're like vomiting in the corner. Yeah. Pukey the clown. We're like, it's really neat.
You hear about, you know, your friend that got injured trying to do CrossFit and stuff. So I also want to talk about, too, I've done like other group fitness classes, not Orange Theory or F45 specifically.
But Yellow Hypothesis?
I don't know, whatever that is.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
But CrossFit defines like all of these different things and their methodology, and I don't know that Orange Theory and F45 defines these, you know, standards of movement the same way that CrossFit does.
Yeah, that's important.
So
like, to have a conversation, I think is always important to have clear definitions of what you're discussing, or it can be very just subjectively open-ended and just kind of like this back and forth. But if we don't know what we're talking about, like, then it's hard to have that point to make. And so, like you mentioned, I mean, let's just kind of maybe start going down these pillars or legs and kind of loosely discussing about it, like the brand of CrossFit. Like, what does that mean to you? What do you think that maybe the brand of anything, because that alone can be very like, oh, is it the marketing campaigns? Like, see, anyone can wear our clothes. Is it like the logo? Is it what you stand for? So like if someone asks like, oh, like, yeah, CrossFit, I've heard of it. Like, what is the brand? Like, what is it? You know, like, I think that alone is important, because I think I feel like just when sometimes things are going well, then something happens. And then it's like, oh, CrossFit, why'd you do that? You know?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Josh?
I view, I guess, the brand as kind of like, and I'm going to bring sports into this. And if you've heard me talk about sports, we're just ignore everything I've said in the past. But CrossFit, I think, is a sport, even if we're not competing. Your box or the gym is your team, right? CrossFit as a whole is like the MLB or the NFL. There are a lot of things we may disagree on what the NFL does or the MLB does, but at a root, we still root for our home team. So if push box is a sport, then I play for Pushbox. That's my team, and that's my brand. So my brand is the gym, and that can extend further out with kind of broader, statewide, countrywide, whatever. But I think the brand is literally just your community that you have.
Mm-hmm. I'd say there's two sides to a brand. It's the marketing side, and it's how the company wants to be perceived, but how the public perceives you is also part of the brand. And so CrossFit puts out, functional fitness, like, what the public kind of sees, but then the other side of it is like Hiller Fit and like what other people are saying about CrossFit. And so it creates this, CrossFit may not like all of these different things that people are saying, but it is the overall arching kind of opinion of the sport, I think.
So so Nicole Carroll, who's got like an OG within the CrossFit community, and I think now she's the CrossFit Chief Brand Officer. She was quoted, "If you want to know what defines the CrossFit brand, turn to our ethos. And if you want to know what defines our ethos, turn to the methodology." And later in an article of the CrossFit ethos, it was like, the CrossFit methodology naturally develops values that characterize the CrossFit community, such as ethics and discipline, resilience and grit, and humility. Is that kind of instinctively, when you hear that, make you think of anything? Because I like what you said. There's kind of like two parts to it, right? There's like, what are we trying to, as us, the brand, can convey, and then how is it being perceived? Yeah. And they don't always quite align, right? It's like, I feel like earlier brand, it was Pukey the Clown.
Yeah.
Right? It was like all those shirts you saw, like, your workouts are warm up, and then it kind of shifted towards all the videos where of like elderly individuals with kind of like blue water jugs. See, you can lift it up, like, and you could feel and sense the huge pivot. And do you think that was because of just like, oh man, what we initially thought, we didn't crush the marketing standpoint? Or do you think like what we initially thought maybe was just like wrong and we evolved? Because like things can change you're allowed to change opinions over time. Things evolve, you mature, you learn from things, like, yeah, I feel like the brand has sometimes been like the huge selling point and the thing that shoots itself in the foot. And so sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or like 1 step forward, 2 steps back. I'm like, have we moved it all really?
Isn't that what a brand's supposed to do, is change and develop over time? 1 week you're wearing Rads, next week you're going to be wearing God knows what, right?
Rads forever.
We'll see. We'll see.
You're not even
I want to take, we'll see what they're wearing in 2026. I guarantee it won't be Rad.
Okay, so like, let's use that as an example. What would take it to like not wear Rads or not do CrossFit, right? Because I think when certain things get so big, even if like Bezos is the worst person in the world, you find out all this stuff. Amazon is so big that if something happened to Bezos, Amazon's not going anywhere. And if Amazon collapsed, Bezos wouldn't go anywhere as a human entity, right? There's this weird, almost like matrix of like things that are real, but you can't touch it, And I think that's businesses and brands, right? Like we are physical people who represent Push, but if we all leave but Push doesn't, does it still exist? Is it now different? And so I think, at what level does it get to a certain size that you can have whoopsie daisy moments like CrossFit has definitely had, but like you don't instinctively want to run away because also all this other great things have planted its roots and grown. You're like, God, but now I'm committed to like this portion of it. And, I'm so torn.
I don't connect what HQ does to what we do at all. I understand that like, hey, yeah, that's what maybe like the mothership would all, but we're different at all. Like, and even if we didn't have CrossFit as the brand, and we're just, Pushbox or Push, what, we're still Pushbox.
Yeah.
And we're still going to do exactly what we're doing today. We just won't have the CrossFit brand on it. So I don't really connect the two. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of stuff they do. I think as a sport, I like watching, and we'll get into it later, but I can go on my little tangent with it. But I just don't think they're doing a really great job, if I'm being honest. So I like maybe the idea of what they have, but their execution is poor.
So
to add on to that, I love that you brought up the blue water jugs because I completely forgot about that.
Right?
And like
they went hard down that rabbit hole for a little bit.
Did.
Yeah.
And like the setup of the couch, like in the living room.
Oh, it was like a weird like 90s like family sitcom or something like that. Yeah.
That was
Must have missed this.
It's We'll show you after or something. It's pretty great. But I feel similar to Josh in that they don't do everything right. But as far as the evolution goes and kind of removing that idea that like, oh, like I'm way tougher because I do CrossFit than you, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not how, the community that Push has is like so welcoming. And I think at the box level, that's really what keeps me keep going to this and keep going through these workouts, is the pillar of community.
So maybe let's just kind of roll into that one. I mean, if the brand is potentially the most kind of like polarizing one, like has a lot of great things, but also a lot of like forehead slapping moments, is the community the pillar that kind of is it the glue that kind of holds it all together?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So like, let's dive into the importance of that, because I think I get asked a lot as like owners, and when the whole like Glassman thing happened, you like the immediate reaction for a lot of affiliate owners were like, F you, I'm not going to affiliate anymore. But you're essentially doing the same thing. Let's just be honest. So something was important enough to their personal values, which everyone's allowed to have. They're like, I don't want to be associated with you, but I still love community. I still love thrusters. I still love rowing. I still love hourly classes. I still love progressions. I'm going to do it without, like lowercase c. I'm going to CrossFit, So the community, that's also the interesting thing. I absolutely agree, but I find, and I've said this numerous times before, when you have a franchise, you also can't guarantee the community is the same everywhere. Like the amount of people who were so kind, who came up to myself or Trish this past Saturday, were like, we've been to multiple gyms around the States, the world, who have tried to do events like this, and it has just not gone well. I don't know how you guys are doing it, but we love being part of it. Thank you all for being who you all are, from members to coaches to Trish and myself. So like, if you had your first CrossFit experience somewhere and it wasn't good, that could be your thought about all CrossFit. So what do you think? Like, it's so important, but it's so fragile if you like mess it up, because you're balancing so many personalities, like so many. We have young, old, white, black, straight, gay, non-binary, military, not religious, there's so many different types of walks of life that at any given moment you're like, uh-oh, it's shaking. But if it's going well, it's like you see the beauty of it, like this past Saturday. And so like, what is the community to you, regardless if it's Push specific or just kind of like, would that be a selling point? If you got a follow-up question in that elevator, you're like, oh, the movement's okay. The methodology, that sounds, is it nice? Are people welcoming? Like, how would you follow that up?
Yeah, I mean, you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people. I mean, and you mentioned how many different variations of people that we have in the gym, but we all have one common goal, and that goal may be different for everyone else, but we're all just trying to get in there, put in some work, feel better about ourselves, and it takes a certain mentality in order to do that. We tend to want to surround ourselves with people who think the same way. And honestly, there's a lot of times where there's workouts where if there wasn't a community behind me doing the workout, suffering with me, there's just no way I would have pushed myself as hard as I did. So kudos to anybody that can go work out by themselves in a garage and just, drive themselves to absolute destruction. But I can't do that. I need somebody else there to suffer with me. So
people open businesses for all sorts of reasons. And I think that you and Trish have really set up a sustainable business where you can really focus on the people most importantly. And it's just so hard to do that. I mean, gyms close all the time. I think you guys are the exception to, business owners, and not just looking for a profit, but looking for to just benefit the community and your friends and
listeners. I'm not paying her to say that. No, I appreciate. I mean, yeah, it's probably when anyone receives a compliment, you kind of stare off and get all like, you don't accept it, like, oh my gosh. But like Trish and I talk about this a lot. Like, we don't think we're doing anything uniquely different except trying to be good people, which then makes me curious and concerned. Like you mentioned, other gym owners open for different reasons. I'm like, what were those reasons?
Or different companies open for different reasons.
Right. I mean, I think I was saying this to Andy Robertson at the party. I was like, the two main things all said and done is we want you leaving every day getting the sense of one of two things, preferably both, ideally not neither, is we care a lot about fitness and we care a lot about you. And I think the day that either of those don't come through is not a good moment in time. You know, like I have my isms and like stop dropping things, blah, 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 my rules and whatever, but we're servants at the end of the day. And we want to be here to create the best experience for you guys here. And so it's heartbreaking when you, like, all the equipment's the same around the world. Let's just kind of generalize it. Like, I know it's different brands, but like it's a barbell. Like when you hear a gym fails, you're like, what were you doing? Like, you have humans there that you could have easily just like made feel good. You know, like it's just a bummer to hear that, because then we don't know when and where that happens. And if we can get any exposure to them to try to recreate that narrative and create a better experience. So I give big shout out to anyone who's gone through multiple gyms, who have found us, who was even willing to have that search and the bandwidth to be like, I'll try again. And hopefully it's been working for everyone there. I mean, we love our people and we think we have something going on really well, but I mean, that we need a lot of helping hands, like you guys and other members who are just like welcoming to now newer members. So yeah, we love it. The community is definitely, I think, like the thing, I think, all said and done, when people are like, do you need to be affiliated? Why pay that money? Are they helping you? I mean, to be very transparent as a business owner, no. My whole thing is, I love the community. I love what the overall, like where and why this is, where CrossFit's going. Mm-hmm. You're trying to get more people to, you know, be exposed to health and wellness. You get to do it in this communal fashion. It is gritty and it's hard. You build resilience. Like, I do love it. And so sometimes, like when you said, when the mothership or the brand does something, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. And
you're like, it's so easy to be like, I'm out. But it also is hard because I'm like, God, but I love like every other element of it on that day. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be quick to react to that. But like, no, we're not getting an actual like help how to run a business. And I think there needs to be more. To their credit, they've done a lot more. They've added a lot more functions and kind of assistance tools. But at the end of the day, like, Trish is the glue that holds this place together in the back end. I'm the one making the reels and doing all the programming with you. You know what I mean? Like, we're putting in the work to run a good business. We're being polite. We're being welcoming. Yeah. And so I'm kind of using it because I believe in the overall mission of CrossFit, you know, and it's nice on a Google search. If I'm just being fully transparent.
You're paying for
marketing. It's marketing, right?
Yeah, it's marketing.
And you kind of take your lumps with that branding, right? To go back to that in the marketing. But
one of my biggest pieces with CrossFit, because, I mean, and we'll even get to the games. Like, the biggest marketer in the games is the community. Mm-hmm. I don't see one commercial on TV. No one tells me about it unless it's your email. And I like CrossFit, but I don't watch it just because it's like, I don't.
So should we pivot to the sport?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, let's
force that.
Let's do it. Yeah. No, you twisted my arm, but let's do it. No, it was inevitable. You seem excited. Do you want to?
Well, to kind of connect the 2 points, like the affiliation and the sport, there are a lot of, like, you have a comp coming up that is not a CrossFit affiliated comp, right?
Yes.
So I think we're seeing more of that. Mm-hmm. And I think that the more that CrossFit screws up as a business, I think we'll see more and more of that. But yeah, sport.
Let's talk about it. I mean, I guess it's I think to a lot of people, it is often, I don't know, blurred and confused with the methodology. I think like anyone who doesn't know what something is, you're like, oh, we should play basketball. They're like, what's basketball? You're like, oh, it's this thing that we dribble this inflated ball and we put it in the net. They're like, okay. And then they go Google basketball. You're probably going to get the top stars of the WNBA and the NBA and like, so you're thinking like, oh, Jesus, like this seems extreme. I'm like, no, I was just talking about playing like bump or horse, you know what I mean? Or just kind of like, so like, what makes it the sport outside of just like maybe the competitive sport nature of a leaderboard in our day-to-day workout? Like this. Oh, okay.
I have a thought.
Yes.
So a sport to me, and we all have our own definitions of sports, but it's something that it is measurable such that, like, if multiple people do it based off of whatever metric you're using to measure. Someone is better than the second person, and then there's a third, like you have different placings based on this. And so depending on how you approach, you know, your workout or comp class, I like comp class specifically, like I go there and I want to win the workout.
Yeah.
You know, keeping in mind, like I have all my, you know, I'm squatting to depth and all these different things,
Right.
but
Meeting the standard, the measurables.
yeah, but I think sport can take place in situations such as that or a local comp because everything's measurable. And I mean, and then it gets to the bigger stage, which is the games.
Right.
And so that is
I would ask you, what if we didn't have a leaderboard and you just wrote in your personal journal? Would it still be considered a sport?
no.
No?
I
would
don't think
disagree.
so.
Ooh.
I disagree with that.
Ooh.
Yeah. No, normally, because
Because then you're just working out.
well, you're competing against yourself. You're first. I know, whatever. But I think it can also the same things of why I love sports, and I will always have 2 children. I'm gonna force them to do some kind of sport activity, especially a team sport. They're going into an environment where everyone is put under stress and suffering, and you lose together, you win together, and you share those victories and those losses as a community. Like that is good for not only for yourself, but just for a general community. So I don't think it's necessarily a measured sport like winner, yes, first place. Because at the end of the day, some people care about the leaderboard. Some people are like, dude, no, don't even care. But I think the mentality of the overall, like going in there and, you know, working together, that can be defined as a sport right there.
You said win and lose in your definition, though.
You win and
Just
lose
pointing
together,
that
yeah.
out.
Well, if you're PR, sometimes you hit a
Just pointing
PR,
that
sometimes you
out.
don't, sometimes you don't. But you're competing against yourself. When you win, it means you beat maybe a personal record of yourself, or you maybe just felt really good that day, and you feel like you crushed the workout. And sometimes you go in there like, man, that workout crushed me, but somebody's there to pick you up, high five you, and you still kind of get that same feeling as if you were on a baseball field or, you know, a football field, soccer field, swim, whatever. I don't know, whatever sport you're playing, you kind of get those same feelings.
I just saw on Instagram there was a competitive Simon Says.
Oh yeah.
And this is like that's almost if Michael wants to grow up to be the best Simon Says-er.
He's off to a rough start because he doesn't listen well right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. So I think here's the gray area a lot. A lot of that seemed to be kind of, if I heard that correctly, in the context of like your day-to-day mentality and approach in the gym. Okay, but
We talk about practice.
we talking about practice?
Yeah, it is practice.
Practice. I love that you just knew that and quoted that. This is awesome. We should have you on every single time. Okay, so then where's that line between telling people, hey, this is a Tuesday, chill out. We're not doing the sport of CrossFit right now. If your kind of definition is like quarterfinals, the games, semis, a local comp, we're meeting up, there's standards here. But to yours, there should be standards every day that we coach and express. And there is a leaderboard.
Yeah.
So is this some of the issues that we're seeing when people are not knowing how to identify themselves as Gen Pop, a really good Gen Pop athlete, a person who's not an official athlete, but now they quit their job, they're investing all their time and resources into becoming an athlete. There's someone who's already like, there's so many levels that I don't think every single day you, the accountant who's like a parent of 3, can and should be approaching every day like the sport of CrossFit. Like you're not going to the games, you know, but then how do you want to also express to them like, hey, you need to also keep a certain level of intensity to move the needle for your health and wellness and fitness. And I think this is a lot of an issues and maybe why it also leads to injuries. And we can kind of circle back to that because that was kind of a few questions and points from people brought in. But I don't think every day you should approach your daily workout like you're in the CrossFit games.
No, maybe not in the games or at all, but I'll keep with the sports analogy. But like, so if I play baseball, I play a game maybe once a week.
Sure.
But if I'm practicing, 3 times before that during that week, doesn't mean I'm going 100% intensity at like in that approach. So I might hit off the tee. I'm not swinging full tilt. I might be going, for 50%, 60% of that day and just working on that particular skill or that movement pattern. And then that way, when it is time for me to play, I have that muscle memory to go in. So every day doesn't need to go in there with 110% intensity, but doesn't mean you don't need to have that same sports mentality of like, okay, this is the intention. This is what I'm going to work on. And maybe I'll dial it back a little bit just so I can focus on that particular movement pattern.
So I like that as the example of I'm hitting off a tee today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we then articulate to someone who hears the definition of CrossFit, constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity? But now you're asking me to hit off a tee. How do you express to someone in maybe the nicest bedside manner way, hey, this has extreme value as well, and intensity is relative and high is not maximal.
Yeah,
So now, going back to branding and marketing and the elevator pitch, how do you that's why I don't like just using that phrase, because I think the word that sticks out to most people is intensity. So where do you, like in a vacuum, you're like, yes, there's day to day, but there's also week to week, there's month to month, and there's like until you die.
Well, and you're like, you program all sorts of workouts. There are 4 quality workouts where we are focusing on making sure we get our head all the way over the pull-up bar, or we go really slow on our squat and we get down to depth. And like when you're doing these things for quality and practicing, hitting off a tee, this is, intensity's lower, but we are, there are, to reference my notes.
Oh, bring out the paper.
The 10 general physical skills.
Ooh, do you have them down?
I do, because I have my L1 guide with me.
So I think this is important because we can kind of just now bounce in and out between sport and methodology. I would say the methodology, and I would even say plus some, is what can get you greater exposure, greater adaptation to potentially go to a competitive level higher than the day-to-day workout in your class affiliate. But you don't need to have a good time and see the needle move at your class affiliate by needing to go to the games. That's your why. In fact, I would say 99% of people should not have that as their why. And what we're doing a program, the methodology of CrossFit broadly, and then us specifically, is to get you generally prepared for life. And there's 10 general physical skills, which are...
Do you want me to read? There's 10 of them.
There's 10 of them, but they're just words. We can go more quickly.
It's only 10.
There are, and so there's some that are specifically for training. They are organic. You work on you improve in these in your classes. There's also the neurological ones, and these are the ones that take practice. So starting from the organic ones that take training, there's cardiovascular endurance, stamina, strength, and flexibility. So those 4... we're working on those in our classes most days.
What she's kind of meaning by organic is like there's the physiological and there's the neurological. And so when you keep doing the movements and which move the needle on the skills and attributes she just mentioned, physiologically you're going to see growth, development, things like that, right? Like you can't
max and like your, mile pace.
You're not getting cardiovascular coordination between like your brain and, you know what I mean? Like you run more, you do more things intensely on the echo bike, or you keep putting on more weight on your squat, something is changing to your body organically.
The neurological ones, so these are the ones that take practice. Are coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. So those 4 neurological. And then there are 2 that take both organic and neurological practice.
Ooh.
That is power and speed.
Yeah, they are.
So
yeah,
that's 10.
So thanks. So we're essentially trying to, within the methodology, touch upon all of those. So we only have so much time and so many marbles on day to day to put them in those jars. And so I think it's hard because you're trying to keep that in mind on our side of the line. But I think people get so judgy on a day-to-day comparison. Like, does this touch all 10? Like, where's my strength metcon? It's a classic, like, I can always tell when someone started the CrossFit journey, like, oh, I noticed you don't go strength metcon. Correct, we don't. And that's not the best way to do it. And that's almost been proven at this point. There's certain times and places for that. You are probably trying to scratch an itch on both and check the box and then move on through Tuesday and then make it to Wednesday and keep that going. But organically, it's really hard to get really strong physiologically, which also takes the longest development of us, to cram in like a back squat in 10 minutes. Right? And it's really hard to practice your footwork and rope climbs and do it in a Metcon within 10 or 15 minutes. Oh, and by the way, like, you move like dog shit. We should probably stretch you out. Here's another 10, 15 minutes. Oh, and then, like, there is none of that and I keep saying the word cram because then the quality goes down. I think we've all been there. You and I have overprogrammed. We made some whoopsie daisies. It stresses the coaches out. People get out late. Then they're like, gosh, we got out late. I'm late to my meeting. Like, it actually causes more chaos. And so you need to start viewing the programming. Like, I wonder if I can go back to my emails. I have my phone off. But we get the CAP, the CrossFit affiliate programming, weekly as just affiliate owners. And I would guarantee if I just kind of, without saying this is pushes, this is this, I would say, hey guys, we're going to do a 6-minute AMRAP today. That's a lot of what their workouts just are. But then people be like, but I want more. What would you say to that? Because some people are like, I think I can handle more. I want more. Where's the other 54 minutes? Keep in mind, there's whiteboard talk, there's warm up, there's priming, there's practicing. And all of that is to get you to burn the fucking house down in 6 minutes. Because we all know the shorter the workout, the more
The
pain
worse.
cave. Yeah, it's god awful.
The shorter the workout, the longer the time actually feels like it takes.
Yeah. And the more you need to warm up for that. Or you're just like running someone's head into a wall without any priming or warming up. You start tasting that bloody copper penny. Your joints hurt. You're like, I'm seeing stars. So we ask you, the listener, to not judge a CrossFit workout just on the daily thing, because you got to take a step back and does it make sense? Like, someone messaged today, like, man, there wasn't a lot of people in one of the classes today. I wonder if people are sore. And my head is like, probably. Bulgarian split squats fuck you up. Guess what? Today was practice on ring muscle ups, upper body pulling, pushing, not a lot of volume, and then 5 barbell power snatches at moderate weight and some burpees.
Well,
Sure, we use some legs, but this is not leg breakdown muscle tissue,
Sure.
We're not tearing down in this hypertrophic. So like, fancy word to say, whenever you get a cast and you take it off, your muscles go through a state of atrophy. You shrink, hypertrophy is gaining. So in order to gain, we need to actually tear down and cause destruction kind of to the muscles. That's what Bulgarians are. But now we're doing a different kind of energy system, different movement stimulus. So the way we program is that you can show up in theory every single day, and it would make sense. Now, we're always going to be more tired on a Friday than a Monday. I don't know how you're sleeping. I don't know how you're eating, yada, yada, yada. That definitely will impact how you feel. But you need to see it as not every day is intensity as in today's burpees. Like yesterday was intense because we're moving heavy weight, but it was only 25 working reps. And 24 per leg Bulgarians. Didn't look like a lot on paper. In fact, a couple people were like, we don't have a finisher. I'm like, then you did this wrong. You absolutely back squatted too light and did not go heavy enough in Bulgarians.
yeah.
Right? So I think it's like balancing how the athlete and the member perceives what they should be getting out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I also can say intensity doesn't necessarily have to be exertion. It could be mentality of what you're bringing to the day, right? Like for the practice on the muscle ups today, it's like if I'm really going to focus on really pushing through on the upper half of this dip, and then really like just really focusing on what you're trying to do and thinking about the muscles that you're using and going through the coordination, that can also, if you're really focusing on it and taking that, high focus intensity to the workout with little exertion, that's high intensity to me.
Yeah. Or going for the 30-second, not the 15, because you see the floor and the ceiling. Like really push it until like you're starting to shake.
Yeah. And
that's where kind of the gains come from, the fitness comes from. It's the 5th round of 5 rounds, not the 1st round. Right. I think a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if there's a kind of a nice way to sum this up and put a bow on the difference between sport and methodology, but the whole idea, and I wish I had it up. I don't know if it's somewhere in your L1, but there's a really great, Glassman wrote, there's like 100 words of fitness, and the whole thing really is you should be doing CrossFit 5-6 days a week on top of constantly learning new and other sports. But I think we're now in this weird, almost equivalent of like a zone 3, right? It's harder than zone 2, but not quite as zone 5. So you're kind of in this gray area of just like intensity and volume that you're not balancing the other 23 hours out well enough. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, we see the people every day. Like, but then you kind of find yourself for some reason thinking you deserve to want more intensity. and then you're kind of just beating your body up and not taking care of it.
Yeah.
And you're not doing the other sports. So if you just look at the methodology, certain days it's quote only a 6-minute AMRAP, because then the next day is going to be longer. And by the way, we kind of want you to go like play Frisbee or pickleball later that day with after the 6-minute AMRAP. Not every day can be like mayhem or HWPO. Like you're not going to the games.
Right. Yeah. Like people do CrossFit so they can like do all these life things. You know, they can, you know, you can pick up your newborn. You can, you know, get off the couch when you're 85 and all these different things.
Move a blue jug of water.
Exactly.
But that doesn't seem sexy enough, I think, to some people.
Yeah. It's
like,
yeah.
They're going to regret not being able to do that then. But I mean, that's a huge, I think, just human issue is like, I won't address the issue until it's a problem. I'll get sick, then I'll get medication. I won't do anything to not get sick. And so I think we need to remind people, like, you will eventually get sick. You will eventually accidentally roll your ankle off a curb. Something will happen in life. And would you rather be more or less prepared for when it happens?
The wellness, health, fitness continuum.
Should there be a reference?
Sickness, wellness, fitness continuum.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
You need to understand that these games athletes are not the healthiest they can be. I was having this discussion with someone in the noon class. You see people at the CrossFit Games, they are not the healthiest they could be. I would argue Matt Fraser is probably more healthy now than he was at his peak.
I'll say most professional athletes aren't.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
It swings back the other way. And so we need to see them as at the peak level and in certain other sports like entertainers, right? And like that's what it is. It is not Matt Fraser's peak games training program for the day-to-day person to make it to 85. Yeah. And I kind of just want to remind people, like, we'd rather you see you consistently show up every day and not slam your head into the wall every day or expect us to give you classic quote 21:15:9s and just consistency is king.
I'd even say training like a professional athlete is probably not going to be fun anymore. You're not going to enjoy it. Like
that could take the fun out of some sport. I think that's why a lot of people stop. They're
absolutely.
like the pressure,
college,
the training.
So many college athletes should probably drop out in the middle of college. It's like, this is not what I expected. They take all the fun out of sports, and that is your life. This sport. This is what I was never a collegiate athlete, but
I was, and it was awful.
Yeah, you're training for something that doesn't. It's
I
no
think
longer
there should
any
be a
fun.
whole separate segment, but I think that mental between. I mean, I think it's a lot of people's story. I used to be able to do this. I had this itch I still wanted to scratch. I found CrossFit. It seemed competitive in this crazy fire breather thing. It was perfect, but I'm like, but they aren't that anymore, or they're not as driven anymore. But then they still have the expectation of being this elite person. So when they're not on the leaderboard, they say, screw CrossFit, or they go too hard. They don't learn the proper mechanics. Yeah. Ergo stigma of CrossFit always hurts people, blah, 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 blah.
I got burned out in like 2019 and I took a year off of CrossFit. But then I came back and I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the classes. I need to not get too ahead of myself.
So let's segue into this. One of the questions from one of the members was, is CrossFit for everyone? And I kind of I said this line in one of the earlier podcasts and I slightly biffed it and Andy Robertson caught me. It was, what it should be is CrossFit may not be for everyone, but it's for anyone. Meaning like, yeah, you may not dig what we're doing, but the way it's constructed, the methodology, the coaching, the scaling, literally anyone can do it. I was at that Sling and Send for a rad event down in Huntington Beach when Trish and I were there last weekend. And you had all different shapes and sizes and ability. You had one guy who was missing both of his legs and he was doing it. And like, we could scale it for everyone. And it was so cool to be a part of that for a moment. I'm like, there was no leaderboard. I'm always going to push it. I'm kind of keeping a peripheral eye on people. I'm like, oh, they're sneaking ahead. But like, it was just such like a good vibe. I was like, this is what it should be. Like, I am always going to push myself. That's just who I am. You may not be that person, right? But if you're not that person, but you're in an environment that feels safe and you see not just all these elite athletes, you're like, oh, it's just people working hard together. I think that's like the beauty and the simplicity of like, that should be the elevator pitch.
It's the community.
Yeah.
And we're all working together to improve our lives.
You're going to get what effort you put in. So would you kind of agree with that line? Like, it may not be for you, but it's for anyone?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it, but not everyone should do it or could do it.
Is CrossFit a cult?
Yeah.
No. No.
There's like, well, it's interesting because like religion, there's sort of like, or a cult has a religious part of it, right? I don't know if the religious part is in CrossFit. Is there a God in CrossFit?
Barbell
Matt
baby
Fraser?
Jesus.
Tia Claire Toomey.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you kind of mentioned earlier, I think some people like just to be haters. I think when you see a bunch of people and they kind of say they do this capitalized C thing, it seems like, well, now there's a label to it. It seems organized. You're meeting up at this location and you're
Yeah.
doing this thing. It's
well,
a
then,
cult.
like, I mean, if you label it that way, then like a trivia night at like a brewery would be a cult too, because it's a bunch of people coming together and it's labeled.
What about other sports?
And I was gonna say, it's like, dude, we have two huge cathedrals of two sports teams that gets packed full. And we're all dressed alike.
Yeah.
We're all cheering for something.
Face paint.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
People have
Yeah.
tattoos.
There's fighting going involved. I mean,
People
yeah.
name their like dogs and kids after them. They're like, I love the Seahawks. This is Blitz.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
If you're an alien looking down, you'd be like, what? Are like they're all, cheering or, praying to these 12 men on the field.
So let me ask. I remember your story. You were very anti-joining CrossFit. Was there a reason behind that?
I
And were
mean,
you the same when you first started?
I was too for a bit.
Did we all kind of start that way? We're like, fuck this thing. Oh my God, I love
Yeah.
it so much.
so
Once you're in
I
it.
started in
Classic
2013, 14, somewhere around that time. And most people already knew what CrossFit was. And more times than not, people don't ask me, "Hey, what is CrossFit?" They ask me like, "Oh, you CrossFit?" Or they
But
look
why-
at me
Why do you think that is the look, though?
because they just what they read on the internet. Or
If
they
I
got-
tell you I play soccer, which is the second highest leading injury rate after running, which, by the way, the means of transportation in soccer is running. No one's like, oh, you do soccer? They're like, oh my God, cool. What position? I played that in like fourth grade. I'm like, goalie? They're like, oh, that's so cool.
yeah,
What is this? I mean,
I
this is
think-
part of the issue, I think.
I think some of it's the community. I think a lot of times this whole my warm up is your workout mentality can be very. It's like, dude, no one cares. No one cares.
Like, you just took it out on the table to measure it, put it back in.
Yeah,
This
dude,
is not what this
chill
is.
the fuck out,
Yeah.
And I think people see it from the outside, and we're very kind of in your face, high intensity, mentality, and
Type A.
that can be very douchey. I said it at times, and I think they see that, and then they're like, "Well, look, you're doing kipping pull-ups. That's not even a real pull-up," and you just constantly have to defend it.
People love to hate on things.
Yeah, they
and-
don't understand.
Yeah, they don't get it.
They
So
don't
what would you
get
say
it.
about that movement? Because JD brought that up about like the whole like that's not real. I mean, it is real because I'm a real person doing a real thing, and you just saw it. Hence why you made that comment. But I think this goes back to any clarification on what it is. Is there a definition and boundary to what that is? And then once you understand that, we're on the same page. The why behind why we're doing it. And it looks like you had something to.
I kind of forgot what I was.
Well, it's not a real pull up, Caroline. What are you doing? Why are you just like flying around?
Kipping pull-ups are really hard to do. First of all, it's like I'm still not very good at them, but I can do strict pull-ups too. And I think that like part of CrossFit's methodology is being able to do those strict movements before you even try doing a kipping movement. Like,
So
right?
the irony that people on the outside looking at kipping and butterfly, and they're like, why don't you do strict movement? I'm like, I can, hence why I can do that. You can't find me someone who can do a butterfly pull-up who can't do a strict pull-up. Or you found me someone who now has a torn rotator cuff who tried.
I mean, one's a sports movement, the other one is just more of a strict up and down strength movement.
One is a neurological versus organic.
There you go. Thank you.
So the organic needs to be developed before
Yeah.
adding the neurological
Correct.
component. God,
Yep.
we're so cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would quickly say to anyone who's like, well, that's not real. I'm like, it is real, but we're not saying one is better or worse. It's if it was in the being used in the application for the sport, it's I'm trying to achieve the standard, the measurable standard, because now we're in a sport. Doesn't matter about the fairness of height or weight or gender or anything, but like you're asking me to start from full extension hanging to get chin over bar quicker than the other person. Is there a way to do so? Yes. Kipping. Is there a better way? Yes. Butterfly. Then I'm going to learn that so I can get better at that. Also, it implies and it produces more power. And power is fitness, especially in our methodology. So they are both real. I absolutely agree. Strict pull-ups are very hard and need to be developed before all the other things. We're not saying in a pull-up competition. So here's the thing. If someone off the street was like, pull-up competition, I would actually say, well, what kind? I want to make sure we're on the same fairness. And if they're like strict, I'm like, cool. Now I understand what you mean by strict. But then you get a lot of people doing like bro pumps. They're not even getting full elbow extension. So I would have to say, let me see one first so I know what I'm competing against you on. So I think it's just ignorance, but not in any bad malice way. It's just they just don't know better. So we need to kind of say, oh, hey, that's a completely fair point. But why we do this is actually create greater power, right? Which is strength and speed, right? Both organic, but also something you said is combination of like both. And I'm trying to get from point A to point B faster, right? So I'm trying to get my heart rate up, trying to create intensity. And if I'm at a competition, I want to beat the person. That's why I use it.
To add to that point, and this is reason why I started CrossFit, is because I, for those that know me, I play baseball and I wanted to get better at baseball. I've been lifting, I've been doing powerlifting or just kind of, bigger muscles for God knows how long, since I was 9 or 13, between there when I really started. But it wasn't really helping me in my sports. I couldn't, what's the point of having big muscles if I can't use them properly?
And what is the source of power on a swing?
Yeah. They're your hips, you're driving through your feet. I mean, you're using that quarter extremity movement, same way as a kipping.
Quarter extremity. Yeah. That's somewhere in your L1 notebook over there.
Oh, yeah.
So
over and over again.
I wanted to learn how to not only get bigger muscles, but how to properly use them in a functional way, if it's in a sports or even day-to-day functionality.
And that kind of goes back in the methodology. And here's, to use some, quote definitions, give you better understanding, right? So if our definition is constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity, like we're trying to improve our fitness, we now need to define what fitness is. And that's what something CrossFit did that other people did not. It was a term and word everyone knew, but didn't quite know how to universally describe the same. So we put the definition of fitness as increased work capacity across broad time and modal domains. All right. And so pursuing this goal is pursuing fitness, and aiming to maintain your work capacity over your lifetime is pursuing health. And I kind of like that.
I like it too.
Right? And so there's the short term, the middle, and the long con. And if the long con is like, I'm trying to maintain my health, then you're going to see the Frasers in a short term do the sport, try to peak as safely as possible when they probably can age-wise handle
Get
it.
the money.
Make the money.
Yeah.
Look what he's doing now, set his family up. And he's like, this hurts. I don't want to do this forever. I want to do the methodology of this forever. And I want to do some other stuff, right? Because I do softball as well, and you swim. And these things, me playing softball doesn't make me a better CrossFitter. Me doing a methodology of CrossFit helps me become a better softballer and other things like that, right? I'm nearing 40 and I'm still relied on as the fast guy on the team because I'm ready, I don't know if you guys had any other kind of questions. I'm kind of quickly scrolling through as we're kind of getting the 10-minute, 5-minute thing here. I don't know. One question. I'm going to shout out to Thomas Raybuck. Why are CrossFitters seen sometimes as crazy?
Because we are. Because most people don't do stuff like this.
It's hard.
Yeah. To wake up, especially Thomas, at 5 a.m. in the morning, and to get in the mentality to go do a Fran, or go put 100% of your back load, your back squat on your back at 5 o'clock in the morning. It takes a different mentality, a different kind of person to do it, and it probably takes a little bit of psychotic, being a psycho a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, make no mistake, this is hard. Even the practice, it's hard to set an alarm, show up for it, be humble, put your ego at the door, practice silly kip swings, but then you kind of remind yourself, you feel frustrated and flustered that 2 years in, you still don't have a kipping blah, 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 or a muscle up, or this and that. You're putting in effort, and effort takes energy. We only have so much energy and bandwidth throughout a day compared to our other stresses. And so we are intentionally seeing something hot to walk on, taking our shoes and socks off and walking across it. And there has to be some type of recognition and kudos to that, but it is hard, but there's a way to approach it. And I think we should probably cross the stigma and injury thing. I know some people are probably hoping we get a little more into that, because we got a lot of points to this, but I would love to, even if it's later this week or next week, kind of almost pick up where we left off on okay, now that we're doing hard things, how do I approach this smartly to be able to do it forever, but still keep a certain level of intensity? How do I manage injuries and egos? Where is some of this stuff? Because as coaches, we play a huge factor in that as well. I will at least quickly say CrossFit does not hurt people. This is maybe too sensitive a topic for some, but I guess my quick off the top of the dome comparative metaphor is like, what is it, like guns don't kill people, people kill people, or like it's, yes, things could happen within the practice and execution of the methodology of CrossFit, but is it really now like, should the coach have caught something earlier on? Should you have articulated, by the way, I didn't tell you, I've had 3 reconstructive surgeries on my shoulder. Is there ego involved? Is there progressive steps? Like, I know sometimes we hear, oh, but injuries happen. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen regardless. Most likely, though, it's because something in your day-to-day is going to happen and you're just weak. Mm-hmm. You're weak.
Well, and what about, so you got the pyramid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you taking care of your nutrition? Are you taking care of your body before you're going in and, trying to win first place in whatever you're doing?
I'll tell you right now, the answer is no. If you're listening, I'm talking to you. I don't know who you are. I know you're not. I see you for the past 15 plus years. I know you're not doing it. I know you're like, what's one glass of wine at night every day? Like what's dog shit sleep? I don't ever stretch. Oh, we have Ramwad offered for free for the past 3 years on the drop down tab. I know you guys are not, and it's not a shaming thing, but this is part of the responsibility and kind of taking the onus. I'm like, I can't just keep slathering myself in workouts only. We're all getting older. We're all getting tighter. We're all limiting our range of motion because of that tightness. Mm-hmm. But now we're asking ourselves to be explosive, and create power in a shorter, tighter range. Like, they're kind of, these are like, no duh. Mm-hmm. These things are happening. But like, even if you're the best coach in the world, it's like, I don't like how this looks. Please, here's a cue, fix it. You need to receive it as well. So this is a very much, in my opinion, like a 50-50 thing.
Well, I think you can also do everything right and still get hurt. You're putting your body under stress, and that's it. And at the end of the day, I'd much rather get hurt by doing like a heavy snatch or even a light snatch than bending over and picking up some groceries and pulling my back out. Yeah. And I won't do that if I keep working out and doing this. But if I don't, I certainly will go on that path.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, adaptation comes from stress. So there's no way to see your riblets, to get bigger back squat, to be inverted, without stressing the body out some. We just need to kind of take care of that. And that's something we kind of, I feel like, somehow preach every podcast, no matter what we're talking about.
Take care of your body.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we have like probably, 79 seconds left. Is there any kind of final thoughts or things, as I just hit the delete button on the notes and deleted everything on my screen, but that we want to kind of briefly kind of cover? I mean, we got a lot of great questions. We want to go over it. That's why we do these. We'll kind of try to be more frequent with them, knowing this is kind of a fun crew. This was good.
I define, so this is just a fun me thing, but each pillar that we talked about today, I defined it personally. I don't know if anyone else feels about this way, but so the brand is how I first heard about it, how it's seen on social media. That's kind of where I heard about it first.
I like that.
The sport is why I tried it. I was looking for something challenging. I wanted to kick my own ass. I was tired of going to a Globo gym. I wanted to do something hard. Community is why I stuck around and why I keep doing it. Why
when
I keep
it was
coming
hard.
back to it. Yeah. And then methodology is why I pursue it. It's why I want to become a coach. It's why I want to help people get better. And yeah.
That was really nice.
Yeah, you're really good at this.
I was going to say, I suspect Caroline may take over the podcast. Yeah. We're going to get a lot of, I want more Caroline.
I was like,
and Josh, what was your personal definitions you were prepared for in your notes?
I just kind of started and never quit,
I think that's really nice. I think that's a good way to kind of wrap that up for now.
Yeah.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah. Let's just kind of end there, and let's do this again. I want to do these more frequently. I think we should touch upon on the next one. I did a poll that we didn't quite get to today, but I liked what we spoke about. I didn't want to just brush over such big topics. And it was kind of, what do you want from your programming? And the 5 options I gave out were strength, endurance, performance, health, and aesthetic. And I think the results are only visible to me, so I don't think you two even know the results of that. Maybe I mentioned
You
them.
shared them a little bit. I don't think I've seen them, but
So
I
I'd
think,
love to talk about that, and I think why we think people think they want to do CrossFit, if that kind of makes sense. Because I think,
Sure.
like you said, there's like the brand, like that looks fun, I'll try that. But they may not know their why. So the first time you get slapped in the throat with 15 bar facing burpees, you're like, oh, I don't like this at all. What makes you keep showing up, you know? And like, why do you think you want this? And that's the whole, like, maybe it's not for everyone, but it can be for anyone. And I would love to kind of go over that. And about programming, I think they tie together, because it's funny how we get certain feedback on programming and how it does and does not match up with the results.
Oh my God, I want to do this. Okay, we do it. I don't like this. It's like, well,
So I think
what?
that'd be very interesting. Did you have a last final 2 cents when I brought that up?
Nope, I'm done.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
She
yeah,
ended on a
let's
gem.
have that
She's-
be the next one, because I think it was very interesting results that I was not expecting. So I'm gonna leave this with a cliffhanger for the next episode. Ooh.
Spooky.
Right?
It was Halloween.
Yeah, it's getting Halloween month. So thank you both for being here.
Yeah.
And dope job. Remember, guys, fitness is neat. And at Push, I guess our brand motto is dope fitness, better people. We make awesome fitness, and you all are amazing humans who do it. So love you. Bye.
Bye.